Hello there viewers, and welcome back to another video today here on GranTurismo Sports. So today you join us for the final round of the Midway Racing League Group 3 Series. So we are here today then at the Nürburgring of all places, the glorious Nürburgring 24-hour circuit, the entire Nürburgring, my favourite track in the world. I mean, if anyone says this is not the best track in the world, then you've not done enough laps around here. I love this circuit. So here then for the final round of the championship, we're at night time as well, although I have cheated. So you may, well obviously as you can see on the screen, it's not that dark. I mean it's darkish but not dark. Basically what I did is I turned the in-game exposure up to the maximum. So yeah, I shouldn't really be able to see where I'm going, but I've been cheated instead, turned the exposure right up, and now it's not daylight, but it's bright. That's why as you're looking at Ryan's car in front now, you can't really see the car, it's just like this white glow. That's because the exposure's up so high. So yeah, here then for qualifying, and well, if any climate change activists are watching now, I just look away. I basically say look away for the next few minutes, because yeah, I'm burning as much fuel as I possibly can right now. So I've got my foot partially on the brake, I'm in first gear, just yeah, trying to get rid of as much fuel as possible before we start qualifying. Now frustratingly, with GranTurismo Sport, you cannot go through the Grand Prix circuit cut through bit like you do in real life. So with the real life Nürburgring 24 hours, when they're racing around here, when they have their qualifying session, they do the Grand Prix loop like this, and then they cut through at the final corner of the F1 circuit and they go start their qualifying lap. Yeah, unfortunately in GranTurismo, that's not an option. You've got to do the whole entire lap before you can start your qualifying lap. So that's very frustrating. Yeah, at this point, like I say, burning as much fuel as we possibly can to try and get the car as light as possible. Also, we're trying to preserve the tyres, so that's very much an issue around the Nürburgring. If you just go flat out on your outlap, your tyres are going to be in a noticeably bad state by the time you get to the end of your qualifying lap. So just crawling around now, burning fuel in first gear and trying to preserve the tyres. After what felt like an absolute eternity, we'd finally reached the end of the outlap, so we've been going around for 9 minutes now, burning a huge amount of fuel. We've got a little more than half a tank remaining, so yeah, burnt through a lot of fuel now. Coming out of this final corner then, coming up to the start finish line, I am going to do a qualifying lap guide, and I'm going to try and pronounce all of the corner names as well, so apologies in advance, I am going to butcher all of the names. So coming up to turn 1 and braking just before the 100-meter board on the left, you're braking just as the grass begins, and then coming in a bit of a diagonal entry then into turn 1. I find these two corners here to be really tricky, so especially coming out of turn 2 here, find it really difficult to get the power down, and it's really bumpy. First gear in this Supra is lethal at the best of times, never mind going over those bumps. Turn 3 then, braking just after the grass begins on the right, taking a late apex and then braking just as the curb ends on the left for turn 4, using all of the track on exit here, using all of that green tarmac as we then make our way then down to the Dunlop Care, using a patch of tarmac, a patch of grass on the left as your braking point for the Dunlop Care. Turning this corner into a little bit of a V shape, and you want to get on the power really early out of there, a lot earlier than you think. Schumacher S's, you can take this flat out in the Supra if you get it just right, but we did miss our apex through there somewhat, so you just had to lift off slightly on turn into the corner. Coming into the Michelin curve then, you're braking just as before the green tarmac begins, and then you've got the Vorsteiner curve here. Hate this corner, I really hate it. There's no reference points whatsoever. It's so difficult, that corner, it's so easy to miss your apex or brake too early or whatnot. Now coming through the kink to the right up to the alternative chicane, much better than the chicane that Formula 1 use in my opinion. I much prefer this. So braking at the 50-meter board on the right and then using all of the curb and then some more. Then coming into the cut through, braking, there's a bit of an orange barrier on the left. You want to be braking there for the cut through, and then turn 1 of the NORDSCHLEIFE, braking just after the pit wall ends on the right hand side, coming out of the corner then getting the power down using these exit curbs, and then coming into the first part of Hatzenbach, you can just about take this flat out in the Supra if you get it just right before you then come down into this tight left right. So braking into a bit of grass on the right hand side, there's a change in the colour of the grass which you can use as a reference point. And now coming flat out through this section, a little bit of a dab of the brakes, getting all gobbling up the curbs through this section. You want to get greedy through there, and then using a little bit of the curb then through the right hander here of Hockenheim, I think it's how you say it. Coming out of there now, we're on a good lap so far as we make our way up to the floodpats. You can go flat out over the floodpats, although the car does take off ever so slightly. There we go, a little bit of a wheelie, and then a little bit of a lift as you go into floodpats itself. First curb, you want to be using that. Second curb, you don't. So we took floodpats reasonably well there as we now come through Cottonbourne and into the Schwedenkreuz. So the Schwedenkreuz, it is flat out in this car, just about. If you turn in just at the right time, it is flat out, but it's a blind entry there, so very, very difficult. Braking for Arenberg then, just as the curb ends on the left hand side, so braking just after the end of the curb. You can get on the power quite early out of Arenberg, earlier than you think, and you can use the exit curb too. It's quite a deceiving corner as we now make our way through Fruxfura and up to Adner first. So through Fuchsruhe, you want to be taking it with a little bit of a dab of the brakes into this left hand here, so a little bit dab of the brakes, using the curb on the entry as you then slam on the brakes for Adner first, using the zebra crossing as a reference then, and cutting a lot of the first part, and you want to be using the curb through the second part too. You can get greedy through Adner first. Now making our way down to Metzgersfield, you want to be using, there's a white barrier on the right hand side that you'll see in a second, so there it is, using the end of that white barrier as a reference, so just lifting up before you turn in then, before you then slam on the brakes for the tight left-hander, which I kind of braked a little bit too early for there. Coming into Kallenhard, braking just as a sign on the left-hand side, you can use it as a reference, braking just after that. Use the exit curb out of Kallenhard, and then coming into Miss Hit Miss then, you can take the first section flat out in this car, but a little dab of the brakes then for Miss Hit Miss itself, using the concrete on the left-hand side, the end of the concrete as a reference. Coming down now into the hairpin, there's white barriers on the right-hand side which you can use as a reference, and then it's a double apex through that hairpin section. Coming out of there now, we are now coming, I think that's called Versenfein, and now we're coming up to Exmuller. So going over the bridge then, using the end of the curb for that corner as your reference to where to brake for, and then into this really tricky corner where you've got that Polish sign on the left, that Polish flag. Yeah, it's really difficult as you go over the crest there. Vicious curve as well. That's a very scary corner. Coming now into the Lauda kink, so this is where Nicky Lauda had his crash many years ago. Now braking, there's a Yokohama board on the right hand side which you can use as a reference into this tight right-hander of Bergwerk. Yeah, late apex through Bergwerk. I quite enjoy that circuit, that corner, sorry, should I say. When you get it right, it is really quite a thrilling corner. Then coming up the hill then, up for these long left-handers, the whole section is flat out, and yeah, just about making it into 6th gear, but in some occasions, in some cars, you will stay in 5th gear up this whole uphill section into, I think this is called Kesselchen. Such a scary corner, slight lift on turning, just about managed to get that right. We actually nailed that corner there, and I'm very happy with that, using the concrete as well before you turn in and on exit as curbs. Now coming onto the brakes now for, I think this is called Klostertal or something. Yeah, I'm kind of a bit loftus where I am right now, but braking just as the curb starts on the left of there, and now coming down into the carousel itself. We've got, unfortunately, we have got traffic in front. We've got Sheikh Shabazz, who we've unfortunately caught up, so we are flashing our lights and now trying to get him to, well, basically move out of our way, but be aware that we are behind. Coming out of the carousel now and coming up to her act, I believe this is called. Tricky section this, the curbs, you want to be cutting that bit there. We missed that apex through here, really difficult through that right hander as the car goes light. If we do give Sheikh a bit of a punt there by accident, we're on a fast lap at the end of the day. We're trying to go as fast as we can, and Sheikh did somewhat get into our way. Going for head fixture her then, getting really greedy with the curbs through that section as you then brake for this right hander just as the curb ends on the left hand side. You can this Yokohama sign on the right as a braking reference for this double left hander before you enter YouTube corner itself, which I believe is called Brunschen. So this is Brunschen 1 and Brunschen 2. Brunschen 2, YouTube corner itself, you're braking just as the curb ends on the left hand side. Coming out of Brunschen now into the ice curve, late apex through here, and be really careful on exit not to get too greedy with the grass and not to get spat off to the left. Coming down now over the jump into what I believe is called the Flanksgarten, I believe this is called. You want to use the first curb, you want to get close to that, but not the second one. So a little break into there. First apex you want to use, second one you don't want to. Coming out over the crest into, I think it's called the Sprunghugel and Flanksgarten 2. Just want to straighten this out as best as possible, really. Just line of least resistance, like Fuchsrow was back earlier on the lap, using the trees on the left end as a braking reference for this right-hander, and then into the left-hander is concrete on the right, which you can use as a reference. Coming into the mini carousel, there's a marking on the curves which you can use as a reference then to brake for the mini carousel, which is an extremely irritating corner. Into Galgenkampf then, don't want to be touching the first part of, don't want to be touching the curbs at all through there, to be honest. It's really bumpy for that section. If you get too close to the curb, it's really bumpy, sends you off wide, no good. Coming now out of the, whatever it's called, the Galgenkampf, onto the Dottingerhoe itself, we are purple by more than 2 seconds. So John Hardy, Apex Magnet, he's already finished his lap. He's done an 8-minute 5.3, and we are more than 2 seconds up on him now as we enter the Dottingerhoe. Coming up to the bridge now, so we've just gone under the gantry, back at the Audi gantry thing. Coming up to the bridge now, coming in to Antonovsbusch, and then coming bombing down into Tiergarten. Such a scary section of circuit here. You are at absolute top speed as you come into Tiergarten. Braking, there's a white line on the circuit, you can use that as a braking point. Getting greedy then with the curbing through the Tiergarten itself and through the Hohenrhein, as that final section is called, and onto the start finish line itself. What is our lap time going to be? It's going to be an 8 minutes 3.1. So that's put us on pole position then by more than 2 seconds. That lap, in my opinion, it was a really, it wasn't the best lap I've ever done on NORDSCHLEIFE, but it was a really strong lap. I was really happy with that. Coming into this round, that qualifying lap, that's what I was focusing on. I wanted to nail that, I wanted to get that right, and I did a good job with that. So really happy with that qualifying lap. We're on pole position. We've got, like I say, we've got John in P2, 2 seconds behind us. Then you've got Ryan, he was struggling with his Viper. He's 4.5 seconds off of us in qualifying. Then we got Mike close behind in the Corvette of all cars. Really not a car you'd use for the NORDSCHLEIFE. The NORDSCHLEIFE is quite a twisty track. The Corvette is not a good handling car. So Mike's done a superb job there in the Corvette to put it on in 4th place. You then got Jake a close 5th in his Nissan GTR, his trusty GTR, which he uses all the time. You then got Kelvin in P6, Sean in 7th, you've got Diman Ivanov in 8th, Adam Sabron in 9th, you've got Zolo in 10th after his highs of the Rebel Ring, struggling to recreate that, and then you've actually got a few gold drivers who wouldn't normally be in Lobby 1. They are in this race for today. So you've got Sheikh Shabazz in 11th, you've got Super Vedu in 12th, you've got Neil Demok in 13th, Tom Pretty in 14th, and then you've got Steve Coatsworth who has quit. Reason why there's some people in this lobby who wouldn't normally be is because this round it had quite a low attendance. Yeah, a lot of people were scared off by this. NORDSCHLEIFE, the whole of the Nürburgring at night time, not everybody's cup of tea, so a lot of people dropped out of this. We normally have 5 lobbies worth of people with MRL. For this we had 3. We had 3 lobbies worth of people. There was a mass yes, no thanks, I'm not doing that. So there's a lot of people do not know this circuit. Moving ahead then to the race itself, like I say, you got myself starting on pole. So strategy for this race, it is an easy one stop. Now Matt was going to make this race a 7-lap race, and well, the fuel only does 3. The fuel only does just about 3 laps. In my car, I was getting 3.1 laps out of a tank flat out. Other cars weren't quite getting 3 laps. So yeah, fortunately Matt, before the race, downgraded this to a 6-lap race, which makes this now a pretty simple one stop. So as the race gets underway here then, going to be doing the whole race flat out, to be honest. We're just going to be going flat out for the first 3 laps, pitting, refilling the tank, putting new tyres on and going again. So dead easy with the strategy. As we look on the radar, Apex Magnet also nearly came into the back of us as we went into turn 1. I think we were a little bit too cautious on the brakes into turn 1. That's the thing with with the start of any race. When you're going into turn 1, you never quite know where to brake because you're not entering this corner at full speed. Now, sorry to disappoint you, but not much happened in this race, to be honest. Not for me, at least, anyway. Yeah, basically, I'm in the lead now, and well, I never stopped being in the lead, to be honest. This race ended up winning it. Sorry to spoil the result, but I ended up winning it by quite a distance. Just because nothing happened in our race though, doesn't mean that stuff didn't happen in other people's races. We're now on board with Ryan at the end of lap 1 of the race, and he's in John's slipstream then coming down the Dottingerhoe, and he's managed to make his way past him and make his way up to 2nd after qualifying in 3rd. Now on lap 2, as we cut to the replay shots here, going into Arenberg, well, check this out. Watch Ryan's car, because well, Ryan's 2 megabyte per second internet, it showed in this race. Unfortunately, his internet was really not good on lap 2 of the race here, and yes, John is behind. in P3, and he was being rather heavily distracted by Ryan here, as Ryan, well, just spazzes out everywhere basically. His car is going absolutely mental as we come into Adner first. His car has completely lost his mind. Reason why his car is flying around is because nobody else knows where Ryan is as such. So nobody else's PlayStation quite knows where Ryan is because Ryan's got such poor internet. So his car is just flying around like there's no tomorrow right now. And well, as we move ahead to Versailles, unfortunately that was the end of Ryan's race, as he did eventually disconnect. His internet got the better of him and he DNF'd from the race. So real shame that. Ryan, he was in second place, and he wasn't keeping up with us, but he was at least keeping us on our toes. But as soon as Ryan disconnected, unfortunately, that was that really. That was that for us. Yeah, we didn't really have any other challenge. So from then on in, it was just a cruise home to victory in this race. At the end of lap 3, it was time for us to pit. So pulling into the pit lane, then we've got what, 4%, 3% of a tank remaining. So putting a new set of super softs on, gonna fill the tank so that we can then just go flat out to the end. You can see the gap to Apex Magnet behind us. It's gone up to 11.7 seconds now. So yeah, pulled a really quite healthy margin. We weren't actually driving too well, to be honest. We were driving reasonably well, but we made quite a few mistakes. Basically, as soon as Ryan left, I stopped concentrating really. I was kind of just like, just bringing it home basically. Yeah, I had a couple of offs, went off into the wall at one point, and yeah, wasn't driving too great. We did, however, manage to do a good lap on lap 5, so as we come up to the start finish line, then at the end of this lap, managed to set an 8-minute 4.0. So yeah, proving that our qualifying lap was no fluke. Yeah, pretty much managed to recreate it in the race, bearing in mind that this lap was done on far more worn out tyres, so I did obviously a flat out lap as opposed to in qualifying, and I had more fuel for this lap, so managed to show that that lap was no fluke. And one lap later then, coming up to the start finish line at lap 6, we're going to come across the line and take the victory as we get rid of the penalty that you would have seen us pick up at Zone 1 at the start of that lap. So ended up winning the race then ahead of Apex Magnet, won the race by 20 seconds, with Jake then 48 seconds behind in P3. You had Mike McGann in 4th in the Corvette, and then you got Kelvin in 5th, Sean Pretty in 6th, you got Adam in 7th, you got Neil Dimmock, actually first time in Lobby 1, finishing in P8, so he did a good job there in the Corvette. You got Dimon Ivanov in 9th, Sheikh Shabazz in 10th, Tom Pretty in 11th, you got Zohair Ali in 12th, and then Vernon Karp in 13th, and then yeah, you got Ryan, who unfortunately had his disconnect. Would have been interesting to see what would have happened if it wasn't for that. To be honest, I probably still would have won, but yeah, it would have been interesting to see if Ryan could have kept up once he got past John. And then yeah, you got Steve Coatsworth, who gave up down in last. So guys, I hope you enjoyed watching that video. Next up, not sure what to upload next. Not sure whether to go and upload some karting videos, whether to move on to season 2 of MRL, so basically catch up to live. We're now 2 rounds into season 2 in real life, so yeah, I'm not sure if I want to catch up with that yet. Other things I could do as well. I don't want to be just a GT Sport channel. I want to play other games, and I want to do real life content too. So yeah, not quite sure what to do at the moment. I'm thinking I might try and make a Assetto Corsa video, so an Assetto Corsa mod video. I might start making those. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you want to see next. Until then, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you for whatever the next video is. So goodbye.